Hello, everybody, and I'd like to welcome you all today to a really exciting session we're going to be doing about reinventing the power of public records, brought to you by CRS Data and RE Technology. If we can go to the first slide, I'll be happy to introduce our panelists for today. So we've got a really interesting group for you to talk about this topic of public records. For those that haven't tracked it, Wave Group has done a lot of research. This is Marilyn Wilson, by the way. I forgot to introduce myself. We have, at Wave Group, have done a lot of research on not only the power of public records, but the amount of usage of public records. And really today, public records is a gotta-have for MLSs. It's just such an important tool for making sure that listings are set up appropriately and that the intelligence that comes with it really has to be done. So this is one of the companies that does, in our view, a great job on that. So I wanted to show you what they're doing. So let me introduce our panelists. We have Ryan Levinson. He's from broker owner from Remax Preferred Properties. And he's got some really interesting perspective on how to use public records as a broker and as an agent, which is awesome. Rob Williamson is the Director of Sales for CRS Data, so he's going to take us through a lot of what he sees from their customers around the country and the ways that they use public records effectively. And next we have John Ryan. Many of you may know him. He's the Director of Membership and Marketing for Georgia MLS, one of the largest and most exciting MLSs in the country. And of course it's me, and I'm from RE Technology as well as Wave Group. So I'm going to kick it into the next slide, and let's get rolling. Okay, so we're going to talk about. Oh, go ahead, Rob. Take it away.
Go ahead. I was just going to go ahead and drive. I didn't know if you want me to go ahead and start my part.
Go for it.
If you wanted to introduce the slide. Okay, guys, I appreciate you all coming. This is Rob Williamson from CRS Data, and we're going to take a few minutes and just cover some things that we see out in the marketplace with public records, as Marilyn was discussing. And again, this slide here, we want to talk about how customer relationships make success a reality. You know, choosing the right public record vendor, there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of free websites. There's a lot of things. So we want to talk about that and then talk about some tools your members may not be using with public records. So can you go to the next slide, please? So customer relationships make a big success, are a huge part of success and become a reality. You know, when you're working with a public record vendor, you know, it's important that they listen to your needs and get all the information that's important to you and your members. So that's part of what we'll be doing today and throughout the life cycle of this presentation. So if you can go to the next slide, please. And again, this talks about a little bit about our company. We've been in business for over 20 years. We service banks, MLSs, appraisers, brokers, mortgage companies, just a lot of folks do a lot of different things with public records. But I know today's discussion is unique to the MLS, so we want to focus on that. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So, you know, when you think about public records, really, what comes to your mind about property data? Go to the next slide, please. Because there's a lot of things that are out there in public records. It could be mortgage information, maps, FEMA maps, exports, tax data, timeliness. Just a lot of things out there to take to really think about when you're looking at public records and what's right for you and your members. Next slide, please. So what we want to do, and again, this is as part of the slide I'm talking about when all the things come together, you get things like property reports, you get nice, easy to use navigation and so forth. Can you go to the next slide, please? So today we want to make sure that you have the right questions to ask your public record vendor or prospects to choose the one that's right for your membership. And I think we'll go to a poll now. So how do your members get help with their public record questions? They call or email your vendor. They call a direct contact at the MLS. So right here is, if you guys will take a minute to look at the responses and check them, and we'll continue. Marilyn, let me know when we're ready.
Okay. Yeah, just click one of the boxes, and then we'll come back out in about 30 seconds.
Okay.
Okay, has everyone answered the question? We'll go back onto the deck. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, and again, this slide is choosing right fit for public records vendor, and what we want to do is highlight John Ryan, who is with the Georgia MLS, one of our panelists, and Marilyn, I'll turn it over to you and John.
Okay. Good morning, John. Hope you're doing well today.
Yes, doing well this morning, Marilyn. Good morning and afternoon here in Atlanta, Georgia. But I'd just like to thank CRS Data for allowing me to be a panelist, and Marilyn, thank you and your RE Technology for hosting this. So I'm glad to be here today.
Wonderful. Well, John, for those that don't know, Georgia MLS operates in a very interesting MLS landscape in the Atlanta area. Can you maybe explain that a little bit, and then maybe tell us how CRS sort of fits into the unique model that you have down there in Georgia?
Sure. Georgia MLS, to start with, we are a company of about 3,000 brokers. We have about 29,200 agents as of last count. But what's interesting about our marketplace is Georgia MLS, we run from the North Georgia mountains down through central Georgia and to the Georgia coast. So we've got offices all over and broker members all over the state. But we also have a competitive multiple listing service here in the Atlanta market as well. And so what's interesting about it is that we actually share 19,000 agents between both services. So that in itself has a lot of challenges and also a lot of opportunity that comes with it. But it makes it a very competitive marketplace because we want to make sure on the Georgia MLS side that we have the products and services that make sure that our members can go ahead and have the comprehensive data and the tools that they need so that they become the business that the agents actually come to Georgia MLS first before going to our competitor to make sure that we have those things in front of them to make sure that we have a compelling business argument for our members. So when it comes to looking at vendors and products, not only do we look for the competitive advantage where we provide those products and services, but we also want to make sure that we have differentiation as well. And so being able to team with a company that is going to give us a little bit of differentiation, that's going to go ahead and have an ease of use of a product, but also give us the quality and the comprehensive data for our members to kind of bring that all together. So that's really why that we work with CRS as a partner to be able to make sure that Georgia MLS stays in the forefront of our members, and we do that through the services and the products, and that also comes along with CRS.
Gotcha. So when you look at CRS, and obviously you made a choice, and I believe it's been quite a while now. What kinds of things do you see that they're doing that's interesting to you, or maybe words of advice for those that are on the call? What are the kinds of things you think that now knowing how your members use this stuff, what should they be looking for when they're choosing a solution?
Well, I think it comes down to the data. We are a company that really, when it comes to property records and tax data, we look at it as being a key integral piece of being able to properly describe a property, where it's accurately located. So first and foremost is being able to have a company that's going to provide you all the data that you need. Currently, CRS provides Georgia MLS 159 counties of public record data. What's interesting about the state of Georgia is that we're only second to Texas in the number of counties that is provided, or excuse me, that is part of a state. So for a company to provide us 159 counties of public record data it's a big task, but it enables Georgia MLS to be able to provide not just a small footprint of where people can go ahead and take a look at property records, but it also allows if they want to look 2 or 3 counties away. So being able to have the data is key for us. The other part of it is the data accuracy. One of the neat features of CRS Data is they provide a data currency table that allows us to go out and look at every county, all 159 counties, and see when the most updated deed transfers and also the mortgage sales have been updated within the system. So for us to kind of keep that differentiation, we want to make sure that our members can go in and know that the latest deed transfer has been uploaded into the CRS Data product, and then that way that they can go ahead and get a true market snapshot in a timely manner of what effectively is going on. So the first and foremost is the data. Second would be the product. We have to have products in our membership base that is easy to use, that's intuitive and efficient. Once again, our members have another option, 19,000 have another option of going out to another service and looking at other products and so on. So we have to make sure we have a product that has ease of use. And then finally, service levels. On CRS's website, they had changed their website, I think about a year ago, Rob, I think is when you had changed it. And one of their premises is refreshingly human. And I could not, when I first saw it and I saw the website, I had to reach out to the CRS Data team and say what an accurate way of reflecting who their company is. We have used CRS not just in initiatives for our members, but we also do a lot of back-end initiatives as well. We use the data for compliance. We use it for normalization efforts. We also use it for market share analysis. So in our marketplace, we want to make sure that the listings that are due not just go into the other service, but also come into Georgia MLS. So we make sure that we can, through the frequency of the deed transfers, we can see when property is sold and has those properties moved through our system through the transaction, through the statuses. So we use the product not just on the front end for our members, but also on the back end as well. The other side, in terms of our development initiatives, we do a lot of in-house programming, and we have some other side products, and we want to make sure that we can go ahead and integrate the public records across all of our platforms. And a lot of times when you go to a vendor, you kind of get some barriers sometimes, and there are hurdles, and we may not be able to do this. But with CRS Data, they have always been willing to go ahead and work with us. One of our platforms is with a company that also provides public records as well, and we wanted to be able to integrate the CRS Data public records into our CMAs to where our members could go ahead and search not just the actives and the under contract and sold listings in our database, but also bring in the public record data into our platform to look for sales that may have happened outside the MLS. And what this allows our members to have is a complete market picture of what is going on in a particular area, whether it's inside the MLS or outside. Not very many companies are willing to go ahead and work with MLSs and say, let's see how we can make this happen. And so the refreshingly human side of CRS Data says, what can we do, and let's see how we can make this work for you, instead of saying, well, we're not sure we can make this happen. So between the products, the data, and the service, CRS Data has performed for Georgia MLS all the way down the line.
Well, that sounds great. You know, I've heard similar things for the audience from other MLSs. Some of you might say, well, of course, Georgia's huge. He gets lots of attention. And I've heard that actually smaller MLSs get just as much attention, that Southern hospitality comes through and they do the right thing for their agents. So that's terrific. So thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Rob,
okay,
you want to go back?
John there. Sure, thanks, guys. For you all out there that are looking at current vendors, or maybe looking at choosing a public record vendor, here are a few questions you need to keep in mind, because we come across this all the time. There's going to be problems with the data. You can bank on the errors and some of the public record data. The key is, how long is it going to take to get a response from your vendor? And you need to get that in writing, in a contract. If they can't tell you that they're going to fix it, within 24, 48, 72 hours, if it's going to be a few months and they're vague about it, that might be a red flag. Second thing you want to find out if CE training is offered. Not that that's a must, but we actually offer this in several states where we can get it approved. And we think this is important because lots of people show up to CE training classes. It really gets the value there. Also, do you need an in-house help desk? In other words, do you need to do this yourself for people to call in and have questions, or would you like the public record vendor company to do that for you? So we do either one, but that's something you definitely need to take into consideration, because you will have questions. And then you need to find out about downtime. In the last 5 years, we've had less than 1 hour of downtime. There's some folks out there that have experienced a lot of downtime with their current vendors. This is something to be aware of. Again, you need to understand how that it can impact your members. And finally, this isn't on there, but you want to find out about usage and adoption. One of the things that we do is we provide our admins, MLS administrators, access to usage reports. So they can pull them anytime, and they can look at what counties are being used, what types of searches are done. So it really helps in two ways. First of all, you want to pull usage reports to see if anybody's using it. Second, how they're using it. Third, if there's parts of the system that aren't being used, it helps identify a training issue that we can address during either our training or your training, whichever you prefer. Okay, next slide. Again, thinking about data accuracy, John had mentioned that. That's something that we pride ourselves on, you know, buying the assessor data directly, looking at different fields that we can make available to your members, and making sure that we're updating in a timely fashion. Next slide, please. And this is huge, mobile optimization. With our new platform, we certainly built it for iPads, Droids, any kind of browser. We support them all. That's important. You want to make sure that whatever you're using is not a flash-based type operation. It's something that can be used on multiple platforms. Next slide. MLS integration is huge. You want to make sure that the public record vendor you choose can integrate with any vendor, whether it's FBS, Paragon, Matrix, you name it. That's one of the things we pride ourselves on. We're agnostic to MLS vendors. You should be able to do a single sign-on, so when you log into that MLS, you'll get access to your tax records. You shouldn't have to duplicate usernames and passwords. And then you want to make sure that when you choose a vendor, they can get you up and running within 90 to 120 days. And one of the things that's really critical when you're looking at vendors is contracts. Do not let the contract stall you. If you're having a difficult time with a contract from a vendor, that's just another red flag. So just things to be careful and look out for. Next slide, please. And customization. You know, for you guys out there that are on MLS vendor searches, not every MLS vendor is the same, and they certainly don't come out of the box looking like the way you need them to look. And we feel like public records are the same. So whenever you're looking at vendors, make sure that they're willing to customize for you, whether that's reports, whether that's fields, just a lot of different things. And we just think it makes a lot of sense to go into basically a scope of work to make sure that you guys are getting what you need. And I think, you know, that's something that all vendors should be doing. Next slide, please. So how do your members find the right data? You know, when you're looking at property information, it really helps when it's looking clean and easy to get to. Can you go to the next slide, please? And so here's just a sample of our property report. It's got a little picture of a map. It's got the location, property summary, general information, sales history. Very nice and clean. One of the things that we've ensured on this this new interface is the reports are emailable, very easily printable. You know, you can download them in a PDF, all kinds of things. So we think that's really important so you can get to the information that you need quick. And then across the property report, it's hard to see, but you've got buttons for comps, prospecting, charts and graphs, refined values. So it's easy to get from the property report to any section in the system that you need with one click. Next slide, please. And again, here is just a view of our maps. They're really nice and clean. And of course, we've got different views available and so forth. I'm not going to go into that. Ryan's going to speak to that in just a moment, but this is just another example. Next slide, please. So, you know, think about new tools and features that you're going to be using. One of the things that we really love to do is the rollout training, and then we do continuous training to staff and also to your members directly. And every time that we go into train, whether it's product training or CE training, there's always a wow factor. Like, wow, I didn't realize I could do this. And so we feel that, again, the training is a huge part of this, understanding the product and getting users to use things that they never would have thought of. Next slide, please. And so really, over the next few slides, we're going to focus on 5 tools that your members may or may not be using, whether you have a public record vendor or not. And so what I'd like to do is turn it over to Ryan. If you'll go to the next slide. Ryan's going to talk about some things he's doing. Ryan?
Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Rob and Marilyn and CRS team. I really appreciate the opportunity. And I'm just going to touch on a couple tools that I use as a realtor. You know, as our industry is changing, buyers and sellers have access to a ton of information. And it sure is nice to have a little bit more than they do. So CRS does a great job with their maps and all the tools that we can have to make sure when we go on a listing appointment or out showing buyers that we have everything available to us. So I use this almost every day, excluding the days that I take off, which is rare. But anyway, I'm going to talk about the map views a little bit. So when you pull up the CRS tax report, you can go ahead and go to the next slide, please. When you pull up the CRS tax report, you have the road view. At least it's automatic for us. You have the road view. We are on Flex MLS, and when you input a listing, they make you drop a pin. I mainly use the road view to see where the lot is, where the piece of property is, to make sure that I'm accurately dropping the pin in the right place. So for those of us with ADD, which I'm guilty of, the road view kind of takes away all the distractions and allows you to just really see the raw lots without the houses sitting on them and everything like that. You can further expand the lot with the automatic view, which is more or less a Bing map. Will allow you to see where the house sits on the property and, most importantly, what's around it. As a buyer, some people have some problems with being next to a landfill or a trailer park or whatever it is, and this will allow you to kind of back the map out a little bit to kind of see what is all around you. I use this tool a lot. Secondly, the aerial view is also a great tool. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. But I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee, and we have a lot of land buyers. And the bird's eye view for me is extremely important. As Rob mentioned, I have my iPad with me all the time, and we're out looking at lots and land and don't exactly know where certain things fall, where a property line is. With the bird's eye view, you can actually catch a shadow maybe of a tree or a shadow of a building to kind of understand a little bit better where you are, and so you're just not bumbling around a piece of property hoping that you're finding the right one, or you aren't going to stumble on something else. So bird's eye view is a great product. Like I said, I use aerial view, bird's eye view all the time. On the next slide, you will see the I mainly use the polygon for searches. Our MLS does allow polygon searches. However, with the CRS product, the most useful thing that I've found the polygon for and the radius search is for prospecting. So say that you are looking in a specific neighborhood that has pretty defined boundaries, which you know of. You can draw a polygon for that neighborhood and go to the prospecting tab and find, first off, anyone who lives in that neighborhood, but you can hammer down a search a little more. You can say, anyone who's 1,300 to 1,800 square feet in this neighborhood for a particular buyer that, maybe you're looking for something very specific. And the polygon tool or the map view search tool is absolutely awesome for that. Let's see here. If you go to the next slide, the layers are probably, as a firm, I would say we use the layers the most. You can see that you have past sales. Over on the left-hand side of your screen, you can see there's like recent sales. You can do parcel ID numbers, addresses. What you're looking at right now, it looks like they have the past sales and the flood zone search on. This can be something that you can print out and give to somebody where they have full knowledge of everything that's around them. And I think that's really important, is to give buyers and sellers all the information so they can make an educated choice. If you go to the next slide, another one of the layers that is really helpful. I personally live in a neighborhood where a lot of the properties transact without realtors. So as you pull comps, you may be missing some stuff. And this particular tool will show any deed transfer that happens. You can do 3 months, 6 months, all the way to 24 months. And for me personally, it's nice to have a good view of every single thing that has happened around you. The MLS is great for realtor-involved sales, and believe it or not, people don't use realtors now and as much. And it sure is nice to know everything that's going on around you. So like I said, you can turn all the layers on and have a map that you can print to somebody or give to somebody, and it's got so much information that they aren't able to get on the Trulia and Zillows of the world. So That is a great tool. Like I said, you know, the property sales is just awesome to give to, or excuse me, to have in your back pocket when you're going on a listing appointment. The next slide, you'll see the drawing tool. Now, the drawing tool is great on certain tracts of land that may not have the dimensions on them. You want to know how long the property, you know, boundary is. You can do distances. So say you're at a corner of a property and you want to see how far it is from the corner of the property to the house. You can just draw a little line with the measure tool, and it'll tell you, you know, within very, I mean, it's pretty darn accurate how far it is away from the property line. What you're seeing here is a large tract of property that probably maybe wasn't measured out yet, and they use the area tool in order to go around the boundaries of the property to show you what the acreage is. Now, you know, like I said, Tennessee, you know, we have a lot of large tracts of land, and you know, it's great if a farmer wants to combine two large farms and say, okay, if you put these two together, you'll have a total of 250 acres or whatever it is. So we use that a lot. And the distance tool is like I said, just really a powerful thing. And I think other than that, you know, like I said, we use this all the time. It is a great tool to have in your toolbox, and I'm a raving fan. And thank you guys.
So Ryan, I had a couple of follow-up questions. Thank you so much. It's really helpful to hear it from a practitioner, you know, the people that actually use this stuff. And I don't know if you're comfortable answering this, but I'll ask it anyway. Do you feel like because your MLS has offered something as valuable as this tool, do you feel like your MLS is doing better things for you as a brokerage?
Absolutely. I mean, that goes without saying. I think, you know, you need to have the most tools you possibly can in order to succeed in real estate. You know, does everyone use it? Does everyone use every tool that they have? No, but, you know, for not having it, I think it's the opportunity cost. You really need to have something like this, and I have not had a bad experience with CRS. I mean, the accuracy of the data is amazing, and just all the little layovers and the tools that you can use, and it keeps you from having to toggle back and forth from, you know, say the GIS site and this site and that site. I mean, it's kind of the one-stop shop, which is huge.
Would you call this a core tool for your brokerage? Is it something you see as a really important tool that you use all the time?
It is for me. You know, I like I said, I use it almost every day. You know, I would probably be lost in a lost world without it.
One other question, you brought up an interesting point, and I wondered how it worked out for you. It sounds like in your market you have a fair number of FSBOs going on, or people that just don't think they need realtors?
Yeah, you know, I mean, in certain pockets of neighborhoods, and, you know, with the Trulia and the Zillows, you know, people can put their property out there and you know, let it test. You know, a lot of people test the market, so to speak. So there are a number of FSBOs, especially in the particular neighborhood that I live in.
So have you ever been successful in using a tool like this, bringing this much, you know, depth of insight where you've been able to convince someone that they actually should use a realtor and not do it on their own?
I sure try. You know, some people are set in their ways and have a preconceived idea of, you know, that we make all this money and don't provide a lot. But, you know, I beg to differ, because I think it's really important to, you know, like I said, you got to have all the tools in your toolbox, and this being, you know, a definite core tool for me.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much. Back to you, Rob.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate that, Marilyn. Thank you so much. I think it's time for another poll. So if you'll go to the next slide. What property data tools do your members use the most? So Marilyn, just want to give about 30 seconds?
Yep, we'll do the same thing. So you just select basic property reports, measuring parcels or tracts, researching mortgage history, pulling comps, or other. It's interesting to see what people use this for. I always get amazed when I look at public record software that it does so much. It's almost hard to explain it because it does so much. So it's interesting to see what you guys have to say about that. Okay, let's just wait maybe 5 more seconds and then we'll go back to it. Okay. There we go. So basic property reports and pulling comps look like the two biggest. That probably makes sense. Okay, thank you so much, Rob. Let's go back to the presentation.
Okay. Great, appreciate it. Thanks for the poll. Let's go to the next slide, please. And again, going back to comparables, it looks like about 50% of the folks use it for comps. And here is really just a screenshot of our comparables. It's really slick, nice, easy to read, easy to use. If you look on the right side, you've got two bar graphs. One's sales price of the comps, one's price per square foot. And again, going back to what Ryan was talking about, the thing that you need public records for in the comparables is not only to identify the market sales from the MLS, but the off-market. And that could be FSBOs, or it could be another MLS that had sold the property that you didn't have access to. And so if you look at the left side of the screen, you've got actual three price indexes we do: price per square foot, tax value, and then a house price index ratio. So you can use either one of those or all of them. You can certainly select the comparables that you want to use and keep those into use. But again, the key thing is keeping it easy and simple, and then identifying the off-market sales. Okay, next slide, please. And then the other thing that we've added in the comps is if you want to do a little polygon search to further narrow down the area that you want to go to, you can do that with a rectangle, radius, or polygon. And it just helps you get down deeper into the weeds to find sales that you're looking for. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, Refined Values tool. This is something that we've just added to our program. And we use Hanley Wood for this. They're a very reputable group out there that gets home values when you have improvements that your clients have done, maybe remodeled kitchens, so forth. Can you go to the next slide, please? So with the Refined Values, if you, let's say in this particular example, you've got a roofing replacement. So it looks like they spent $6,500 on a new roof. And so this computation will actually tell you what percentage of that would actually be you could add to the value of the property. So in this particular scenario, it's like 71% of $4,600. And so what that would do is it would go right back and you could put it into your comparables adjustment on the comparables page. It's really a nifty tool, and we're finding that a lot of the folks out there really like using this. So we thought it was a good investment in this opportunity. So go to the next slide, please. And then finally, prospecting. A lot of folks call prospecting farming, mailing labels, whatever you want to call it. For us, we just call it prospecting. That's what our tabs are called, but we can change that. It's no big deal. But in this section of the information, you can go in and generate mailing lists. You can export into Excel, top producer, any kind of file format that you'd like to. So let's take a look at it. Next slide, please. So here is just a sample screenshot where you could go into zip codes. You can select properties that were sold 5 to 7 years ago. If you wanted to, you could search for out-of-state owners, non-owner occupied, whatever you want to do, and get your list. One of the things that we've added, which we find is really helpful, is whenever you're generating a prospect list, you want to make sure that you exclude the current market information, like what's on the market, what may be recently sold. So we've got a few little buttons over to the right side that allow you to do that, and you can eliminate any market sales or on-market activity. So that way you're not sending address or postcards to folks that have already got their property on the market.
Rob, we just got a question about that. Can you filter for probate leads through the database?
Probate leads, no. Currently we don't collect that information, but that's a great question.
Okay.
Okay. Next slide, please. And then the other thing most people love to do is go into a subdivision. They might have just sold a house in a subdivision and they want to go in there and do the prospecting. So we have that option available for subdivisions. Okay, next slide, please. And then there's the ever-popular map that Ryan was talking about. And Ryan was even talking about prospecting using the map. And here's an example where you can draw a polygon, a rectangle. And then once you get the information that you want, you can then narrow it or filter it down any way you'd like, maybe by house size, how long ago it sold, just lots of different building characteristics that you can filter it. Okay, next slide. One of the things that we have found that people really love about the prospecting, and this is kind of silly, but it's the mailing labels. We are very unique in what we do, and that is this. If you look over to the left side, you've got the 3 columns of 10, basically like an Avery 5160 sheet. Most people, when they print labels, they might have a half a page of labels left over, so they just discard labels and put in a new sheet. Well, what we've decided to do is allow the user to start a labeling process on any part of that sheet so they don't waste any labels. And we really get a kick out of that when we're doing training. People just love that feature. So we call it a flexible option. Okay. The other thing I'd like to talk about is the exports. I'll go to branding in a minute, but you can stay there. But usually we allow about 5,000 exports a month. However, we're flexible. If you need more than that, we can certainly tailor that to your MLS needs. And then branding. This is something that we have had people ask us for years. Can I brand the reports to reflect my name, my agency, so forth? If you'll go to the next slide, I'll show you what that looks like. And so there's Ryan's branding right there. And so he can have this branding on any report, the comp reports, maps, property reports, anywhere. And over to the right is a little button called Profiles and Settings. And so when you go into there, you will actually have more options that you ever wanted. You can do lots of things other than branding. You can tailor the maps to customize whenever you pull up a map, what you see, the comparables, so forth and so on. The other thing that's really neat about this section over to the right of Profiles and Settings is Help. Most people don't get excited about Help, but we actually do, because what we did is we put video tutorials, about 3-minute tutorials on just about anything that you want to learn in CRS. So if you don't want to call a help desk or something, they're there for you. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, and now it's time to say thank you, and that really is what we wanted to cover. I think we'll have some additional questions. If you'll go to the next slide. Our partnership offer over the next year, if anybody that's attended this wants to use CRS, we'll waive the setup fee. And we certainly, as I talked about earlier, we do customize. If your group needs a ton of customization, we'll be glad to meet that. We might have to charge a little extra for that, just depending on what its needs are. But typically we find that we get things done pretty quickly and very cost effective. Marilyn, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, so let's open it up for questions now. If anybody has questions that they want to ask the panelists, send them our way. I'm going to kick off with a couple that I had just from listening to the conversation. One of the things that strikes me when I look at CRS, and I think when you look at the slides that we just saw, it's just beautiful. It looks clean. It looks easy to read. It sounds like Ryan agrees that he feels like it's an easy system to use. How did CRS get to that, and how did you get to a place? Because I think a lot of the systems that MLS companies purchase, frankly, are not the most clean and neat and lovely. They're a little bit outdated looking. So, how did you get them to this place? What was the process you went through, and how'd you get here? It looks great.
Well, I'll take a stab at that, Marilyn. What we did is we interviewed our customers quite extensively. We sent out several surveys, and we worked with other partners out there that are really good in graphic design, really on the, not the bleeding edge, but the cutting edge of technology and how to make things look really good, as you see. And really one of the key things was making sure it was optimized for the mobile market. Everything is mobile now, and because it's mobile, it really takes a different attitude and the way to look at things in terms of building the interface, the UI, and so forth. But it all started with our customers. We wanted to find out what they like about our system, our old system, what they didn't like, and what they'd like to see different. And so we incorporated that, and we'd like to think we did a pretty good job.
Got it. Yeah, so it's nice to hear people talk to their customers. A lot of people don't do that. It's really important, and it looks like you've netted with something really neat. So maybe just this is a loaded question for me, but I'll ask it anyway. Just in a few words, what would you say really separates you from the competition? Because I'm sure some of the folks on the call may have their competition or maybe thinking about it. So why should they choose CRS? What's different about you relative to other people out there?
Well, again, one of the slides painted back to where we're refreshingly human, and I think that's really what it boils down to. I mean, we've got a lot of great people in the space that do similar things. We like to pride ourselves on thinking, hey, we'll listen to people. again, every tax system is not the same across the board, I mean, in terms of meeting the needs of members. And we think it's important that we find out what you need. I mean, if you send us a 20-page a 20-question RFP, which we've seen, a lot of the stuff is just standard questions. But we'd like to take it a little further. Like, what can we do better? Are there particular ways that we can access information and make that available to your members, which would be easier for them to use and make their life a lot better? So again, it just really goes down into being a little more personal with it.
Got it. And you know, some people on the call may have purchased or not purchased, but have received RPR as being part of the NAR family. How would you say that the difference between public record software and something like RPR? What do you get here that you don't get basically from that free program?
Well, that's a great question, and we have lots of great partners with RPR. We think it's a great software. It does a lot of things. And really our separator is, if you think about RPR, it's a national database. So if you needed, if you're out in Atlanta, Georgia with John Ryan and you want to look at something in San Diego, you can have access to that. I think the one thing that really separates us is we're very local. So if an MLS is out there in, say, Sacramento or Indiana somewhere, or even maybe Emerald Coast, they've got different data needs. They've got a smaller set of places where they're very specialized, and that's where we're different. We want to go in and make sure we get that data updated very timely, as John Ryan was talking about, and make sure that we're getting specific things for that area that they need. And then we just feel like we do a little better job of that.
Gotcha. So, I mean, we know lots of our clients offer RPR plus something like your system. Is that what you see across the country too? That a lot of your customers offer both? That it's really not an either or. You can definitely have both. Absolutely,
absolutely. In fact, I mean, the folks out there are already paying for RPR whether they like it or not. So, if I were them, I'd want to get it.
That's for sure. Another thing we see a lot of. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we have a lot of customers that use RPR, and they use it for different things. I mean, like I said, it's a great system. It has lots of great features, and they use us for different things. So there's room for both. That's the way I like to look at it. And our customers, I mean, we put it this way: we've never had a customer to give us a written notice because they wanted to use RPR instead.
Gotcha. Okay, good. John, if you're still on the call, this might be a question actually for you and for Rob. We find a lot that when an MLS is allowed to offer technology training for CE courses, that they get great adoption and people use them a lot. In Georgia, are you able to offer CE training for public record software?
We are, Marilyn. In fact, it makes it a good way of actually getting people in the seats to use the product. The beauty of the new interface with CRS is that it is intuitive, but being able to offer the CE credit side as well, and we generally do it at no cost. It's something that we do as a member benefit to our members, but it enables them to go ahead and get the full product offering, but also get the bonus of having that the CE credit that comes along with it. And the more people that can go ahead and utilize the product, it also, through the training, our call center handles most of the calls. It reduces the amount of calls that come into our call center. So we are very heavy in terms of being able to promote it through education.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And Rob, when you work with other MLSs in other states, do you actually help them secure the CE training? Because for those that have done that, sometimes it's not so much fun.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, we actually do. Typically, we'll usually go to the state Board of Education or whatever they call it. Every state's a little bit different. And a lot of times the MLSs that we're working with have contacts, and they'll make some introductions, and then we'll take it from there. Usually they want to see the syllabus, what the course looks like, and everything before they can get it approved. But we take the lead on it. But sometimes we do get the MLS to help out because typically they're local. They've got contacts and the folks to do CE training, and so it's kind of a hybrid.
Gotcha. This one's for you, Ryan. And here's your chance to help the MLS industry be better. If you were going to be directing an MLS organization to be finding a software solution for public records that was going to be really broker-friendly and agent-friendly, what are the kinds of things you think that they should be, looking at closely?
I think ease of use is one. I think once you try to get too technical, you start losing people, and I think this is a perfect example of that. The number of tools and layovers, not to be repetitive here, but I'll stick to what I know, and having all that available to you just really makes the choice easy if it were my choice. But the more simple you can make it, I think the better. The less hoops you got to jump through and things you got to do as far as strokes of the keys, the better. And I will say that offering CE for the classes sure helps on the realtor side. It's like offering food and drinks at an open house. You're bound to get somebody.
Yeah, if they can actually learn something in CE, that's always good, right?
Yeah,
something that's meaningful.
Incorporate some wine, and you'll have everybody in the whole MLS there.
I've heard stale donuts work too.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great. Rob, you mentioned a couple of times the words refreshingly human, and other than it being a tagline for the company, what does that mean? What tell us what if I'm an MLS and I've been working with another company, and let's say for whatever reason I'm thinking about switching, what's going to be different about you than whoever else I was with before? What does that mean, refreshingly human?
That's a great question, and it is kind of a tagline, but I think for our company it starts from the top down. Our CEO, Matt Casey, I can't tell you how many MLSs he goes to, not only for sales presentations, but he gets involved in any kind of challenges they might have. And so by him sending that message, it's very clear to everybody below, all the way down to our support staff, that is the kind of company we want to be. We want to be the kind of company when somebody calls, it's always the call will be taken, and if not, it will be returned very quickly. And that's just our culture, and that's what we do. And it's not only on the technical end; it's the sales. It's everywhere. But again, it just really starts from the top down in our company, and we think that that's different from maybe a Fortune 500 company. I don't know how many people would get access to a CEO of a Fortune 500 company if they needed something. Well, with our company, you do. So if Matt, if you're on the phone, we're not going to have everybody call you, but that's just how we operate, Marilyn, if that makes sense.
And I think you mentioned this a little bit, but you guys actually do a lot of your own data collection and normalization in your own plant, don't you?
Absolutely, we do, and it's a lot of work. A lot of people think that you just take a vacuum cleaner and plug it up to the courthouse and suck that stuff out, and it just happens. It's just not that easy. It's a lot of work on the back end. So yes, we do that, and because we do that, we have control on what happens to the data, and especially where it comes to error correction. Like I said, there's going to be errors in data. There's no doubt about it. But because we own it and we're doing these things, we can correct it really quick.
Got it. I was just working on a couple of RFPs recently for MLS system selections, and one of the key criteria that people were looking for there was the ability for integration. So can you talk a little bit about sort of the integration that you provide with MLS systems and kind of where within the system, kind of how it works, because there's different levels of integration. From what we've seen when we talk to MLS tech committees, they really want a deep level of integration to make it easy for people like Ryan to use the system effectively. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. Great question. So with an MLS integration, there's all types. Basically, it really starts with auto-pop or autofill. That's one of the things that people use a lot, and that's where you just auto-populate public record information into the listing when you're doing the initial listing input. Other parts of integration include reverse linking, going directly from the MLS to the tax records seamlessly. In the comparable section, if you want to look at the off-market sales or the MLS listings, whether it's active sold or pending, there's different types of integrations there. So it really depends on the level of integration that the customer wants. And we've got several examples by working with different MLS vendors, and it gives them an idea. But going back to what I talked about earlier in the interview stage, or the kind of, drawing up the plans, are there things that they would like to see heavily more integrated? I'll give you an example. If you go into a non-disclosure state like Texas, there's no sales prices, okay, because it's non-disclosure. So one of the things that we do with one of our customers out there is we take the MLS sales and we feed it into our public record reports in the system. So when they're in the public records, they can at least see the sales prices, assuming that it's sold on the market. So again, every area is different, and I think every integration need is probably a little bit different. So hopefully that
John, John, maybe you could talk a little bit about that. Do you find that the integration with CRS into your MLS system has been helpful? How does yours work a little bit, if you want to talk just a little bit about that?
Yes, it's tremendously helpful, Marilyn, and we've been partners, or CRS have been partners with Georgia MLS for about 7 years, and so when we had some development initiatives that were going on, we had some specific ideas of how we wanted to be able to integrate the public record data into the MLS, and not just back and forth of being able to see a listing record and then click on the tax ID and then have it go out, but actually being able to incorporate it into the reports. And so we've always had an idea of being parcel-centric, and it kind of goes way back in our philosophy. But we actually were looking for companies that were willing to work with us and work with our other vendors and being able to integrate it. So one of the online platforms that we use, and I had touched on it earlier, is being able to go ahead and select both the active under contract sales that are solds, for a CMA, but then also pull in the solds that have happened outside of the MLS and then have it incorporate under one CMA. So when our members go out and go to their clients, they are giving the true market snapshot of what's available. And not all vendors were willing to be able to go ahead and work on a development initiative like that. And CRS, when we first brought them in, you could tell that they were willing and able to go ahead and do whatever it took to do it. And then also work with some of our other vendors that that also had public record sides as well, that were willing to go ahead and say, okay, we're going to work with a competitor of theirs, but also provide whatever the customer needed. And it wasn't an easy step for CRS to do that, but the willingness of that just showed how far that they appreciated us as a customer, and then also showed how far willing they were to go to work with other, with the vendor to make it happen. So the integration is really first and foremost in terms of being able to go ahead and leverage the power of that public record. And it also helps in the expansion of Georgia MLS. So as we move to outlying areas or prospective areas, being able to go ahead and say we provide all 159 counties, and then those areas may have needs that we can approach CRS and say we would like a few extra, for instance, we use 54 counties of raw data. They provide us the raw data files that we utilize. So to go to Rob and say, Rob, I need 5 more counties of raw data, Rob says, you know what, John, let me see if we can do that for you. And generally within a week, we have that available to our data admin. So it's really important, the integration, not just for the members, but also the expansion and so many other different areas. So that's just an example of how we really rely on CRS data.
That's great. Yeah, the expansion's a whole other opportunity. You're right. For those, some of the larger MLSs or even smaller ones that may want to think about, merging a couple together, that really makes a big difference. In your organization, do you offer RPR and CRS?
We do. It's an interesting market because here in Georgia we have also non-realtor as part of our MLS system. The only requirement that we have through a legal precedent case is the fact that they are licensed and in good standing with the Georgia Real Estate Commission. We have to allow them membership to the MLS. So what we have done is a 3-way agreement between RPR, the Board of Realtors, and Georgia MLS that if a Board of Realtors would like to have their listing data populated within RPR just for those realtor members, that we allow the feed. So yes, we do, Marilyn, but it's not 100% because we do not have 100% realtor membership. We have non-realtors as well.
Gotcha. There's a question from the audience, and I'm not sure that I quite understand it. I will read it to you guys, and maybe you can take a crack at it. It says, well, I have to pay 2 fees since I'm already with an MLS with the brokerage I'm with. I'm wondering if maybe someone in the audience thinks that this is a separate MLS system or something like that. The answer is no, I believe, right? Once an MLS offers this, it's just part of your normal subscription?
Correct.
Okay. I think that's the question. If the person that asked that, if I didn't answer it properly, I'm sorry. If you want to answer it again, I'm happy to try to articulate it more clearly. Okay, let me see what else we've got here for you. You talked about customization, Rob, and the question is, what type of customization options do you provide? Maybe you talked a little bit about that during the call, but is there anything else that you could kind of share with us about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And typically, you know, without rebuilding the whole program, we're not talking about that customization. But what we find in a lot of different areas, and again, getting kind of in the weeds, a lot of different assessor files have different data available to them. So what we do is, first we go and try to uncover all the data fields that are available. And one of the things that we come across all the time are, hey, you know, I would love to be able to search by, you know, you name it, whatever field, which might not currently be on the system. And they ask, can we make that field available to make it a search field? Absolutely, we can. Another thing that we get asked is there a way that you can generate, or I can build this type of report and make it look a little different for whatever reason? And so those are two things. Searchability and reporting is huge. And I'll give you a good example. One of our customers over in Greenville, South Carolina, one of the things that was huge to them was MLS area numbers. And they wanted to know if they could search by MLS area numbers and then take it a step further and see if we could build a MLS area map where the user could just simply toggle the mouse over any part of the map and it would give them the MLS area number. Well, we did that. And that was total custom, but that was something very critical at the time. So, Marilyn, those are just a couple examples of customization.
Gotcha. And let's do one more call, or one more, maybe there's another one that comes in, but I just got another one about, you mentioned briefly about little videos or something, some sort of training embedded inside of the system. You know, we hear a lot from MLSs that they look to their vendors to help them find ways to do two things. One, to make their system simple enough that they don't need to call anybody's help desk. And secondly, if someone does get stuck in a particular field, you know, find a way to help me, or I should say help them, quickly answer that question so they don't have to stop what they're doing and call us or get an email or whatever. Tell me about what that looks like for you and what you do to help MLSs with that problem.
Well, again, you're right. The reason we did the video tutorials was not as the system is complicated to use, but for every individual out there using Microsoft Office, they use it for different reasons, and they don't know how to use it for different things, whether you're thinking about Excel or Word. And any software is like that. So the video tutorials are very short and to the sweet, or very short and sweet and to the point. So it just actually helps the user that say, hey, I'm going to get a training, let's say, in a couple weeks, but before I get there, I want to take a look at some things. So it's kind of a precursor to actually going into doing some training. When users get stuck, it's really easy to find your way in our system by simply, if nothing else, hitting the back button or just getting out. But we don't really have that come up on the help desk. And then finally, of course, the help desk, nobody likes to call the help desk because they fear it's 1-800 going to China. Our help desk actually goes to not Bangladesh. So they get somebody live they're talking to, and they help out, and it's really efficient. So unfortunately, there's no 100% bulletproof way to get people out of jams, but we feel like we do a superior job on helping them, you know, once they get in that jam, getting them out and certainly preventing it in the future.
Okay, here's another one that came in. Can you elaborate a little bit more on how you obtain the data? You mentioned collecting it yourselves. Do you purchase the data from other sources, or do you have data input operators for all of it?
There's a variety of ways. Typically, the way that we prefer is we go after the data ourselves to different counties. When we get the assessor files, and then we can key the updates. Most updates, meaning sales and mortgage information, most counties we can do that online, so we can key that out of Knoxville. However, there are some still around that we actually physically have to go to the courthouse with a laptop and start keying. So there's different options, but the in-house method is what we prefer.
Gotcha. But you're on the ground, slogging through 3x5 cards and all the crazy stuff that goes on in public records, right?
It gets worse. About 6 months ago, we had a county in Virginia, actually a city in Virginia, said, we've got a box full of records. If you want to type them in and key them in, we might buy it back from you. So we took that, we went and picked up that box and started keying them, because that's how
oh my gosh.
Yep.
Don't you love America? We got it all here. Well, thank you so much, everyone. It's thanks to John and Ryan for sharing your customer perspectives, and for Rob for taking us through all this great stuff. I really appreciate it. Thanks to everyone on the call. And again, take a look at that in partnership offer. That's a significant offer to waive the setup fee for those who partner with us within the next year. So, if any of you are in that game, be sure to reach out to Rob. If you have any questions or comments about the webinar, you can feel free to give me an email at marilyn@retechnology.com. And thanks again. Everybody have a great day, and hope you have an amazing fourth quarter.